itself from the protests days after President William Ruto accused them of being the force behind the anti-government demonstrations. Ian K24 opens our comprehensive news coverage tonight with details of this story.
The United States-based philanthropic organization, in a response to a letter written to its president Darren Walker by Foreign and Diaspora Affairs PS Korir Sing'oei, has refuted claims of funding the ongoing anti-government demonstrations in the country. Through their social media platforms, the foundation distanced itself from claims of funding the protests. Foreign and Diaspora PS Korir Sing'oei, in a letter dated 19th of July 2024, raised concerns over the organization's funding of various activities in the country. According to the PS, the foundation sent funds amounting to 752 million shillings to various civil society organizations in the country. Sing'oei questioning the correlation of the funds and recent protests against the government. In a rejoinder, the foundation said, and I quote, "As a charitable foundation with global presence, our grant making is transparent and readily available on our website. This includes a database showing where our funds go, as well as highlighting from our rich history in East Africa and around the world." The foundation further cautioned protesters against any actions that advocate for violence.
We issue this statement.
This comes as civil society organizations in the country refuted claims of them fueling protests against the Kenya Kwanza administration by funding the demonstrations.
Deeply concerned by the recent letter by the government of Kenya implying that civil society organizations fund and support unlawful behavior and unruly protests, which are a stark contradiction to our work. We categorically repudiate these unfounded accusations and ask the government to remain true to the Constitution and protect independent civil society organizations and the media in Kenya.
The organizations led by Kenya Human Rights Commission, the Institute for Social Accountability, Transparency International, among others, argued that the claims undermine the work of CSOs in the country, calling on the government to uphold the rule of law.
The allegations that civil society organizations are complicit in promoting illegal activities undermines the invaluable work that they have done to strengthen our society and is aimed at tarnishing the perception of civil society to the citizenry we serve. In recent months, civil society organizations have risen to initiate rapid response interventions to meet the pressing and overwhelming needs and concerns of Kenyans who have been affected by the crisis.
DCI boss Mohamed Amin did not escape the wrath of the civil societies following the recent spate of abductions, the CSOs demanding for his immediate resignation.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the Director, Mr. Mohamed Amin, admitted to the nation that the unlawful and illegal abduction of Mr. Macharia Gaitho was a case of mistaken identity, a clear confirmation that the DCI has been abducting Kenyans and peaceful protesters. We strongly call for his immediate resignation and that he be held accountable before a court of the law.
While noting the importance of CSOs, the organizations cautioned the police over use of excessive force and undermining the freedom of the press.
Prominent human rights organizations in the country have been subjected to an increase in acts of intimidation, harassment and threats by the authorities, as well as threats against partners that fund their human rights work. These attacks and threats have also been unleashed upon the media and individual journalists. We call upon the government and all stakeholders to protect the Kenyan civic space.
Their sentiments come at a time when the Gen Z protesters are vowed to go on with their anti-government demonstrations scheduled for Tuesday the 23rd. Ian K24, K24 TV.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is urging the youth in Kenya and particularly the Gen Zs to stop anti-state protests, assuring them that the government has heard them and is ready to implement their demands. Speaking in Kirinyaga County on Saturday, the DP acknowledged that it is right for Kenyans to protest and seek answers from the government over governance issues, but he also lamented that the Gen Z protests have been infiltrated by people with criminal intent. Busara Naman reports.
Kirinyaga County during the consecration and installation of the regional bishop Samuel Karimi and ordination of 33 other church ministers in the PEFA church, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua urged Kenyans to shun negativity and appreciate the development strides achieved by the Ruto administration, even as they criticize it.
Let us not be negative throughout. In the midst of all the challenges, there are a few good things serikali imefanya. Si ni kweli?
Reaffirming the government's commitment to rebuild the economy and lower the cost of living, Gachagua said the president has performed exemplary well in enhancing good governance and accountability, improving food production, streamlining the education systems and transport infrastructure, and he needs support and acknowledgement on the progress.
Tukiangalia mambo ya walimu, tumeajiri 56,000 teachers in 1 year, kitu ambaye haijafanyika katika Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa muda mrefu sana. As we talk now, shule zote zimepata walimu, hata JSS, na tunaendelea. Again, tulipoingia tulikuta mambo ya CBC ilikuwa imeleta matatizo. Rais wetu akaweka Presidential Working Party on Educational Reforms, tukasikisa kila mtu.
Gachagua also asked young people to call off peaceful protests to guard against infiltration by criminals who looted shops and destroyed property recently.
Hata hii Gen Z pia sisi tunaheshimu nyinyi. Ile mnasema tunasikiza. Na mumeongea Gen Z. Na tumesikiza nyinyi. Na mimi nakubaliana na presiding bishop. Tafadhali Gen Z, my children, my sons and daughters, we have heard you. You have spoken clearly. What you have said needs no full stop or comma. It's clear. Lakini sasa mkitoka wakora wana hijack mambo yenu. Wezi wanaanza kuiba mali ya watu, si ndio? So we want to ask the Gen Z, you have spoken, we have heard you.
Regarding the fight over illicit brew, the Deputy President asked county commissioners and police bosses to ignore politicians hindering the war on illicit brew, saying that the menace must be stopped.
Na mtu akikwambia ati hii vita imesimama na simu, umwambie hapana, andika barua. Mambo ya orders from above iliisha. Tunataka kama wewe unataka kubadilisha ile sheria tumesikizana, weka barua, weka muhuri, iweke kwa file. Ionekane aliyesimamisha vita dhidi ya pombe haramu na bangi ni nani.
Busara Naman, K24 TV.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga's plan to engage in dialogue with President William Ruto has divided the coalition and his party. Leaders of the Orange Party have criticized the move, terming it a disaster. Siaya Governor James Orengo now says the government is sinking and that engaging Ruto is signing one's own political death wish. Brana Mwai reports.
We have agreed that a dialogue is the way forward.
The decision by Azimio principal Raila Odinga to engage in dialogue with the government has been criticized heavily. The talks, whose intention is to help the head of state solve the issues that have been fronted by Gen Zs, have been termed as a move by the government to silence the people without having solved their issues.
We have agreed that to bring the country together for the purposes of working on the issues that are of priority to the people of Kenya. We will move ahead with the multi-sectoral forum.
The opposition now seems to be reading from different scripts as constituent parties of the coalition distance themselves from the talks.
I'm urging everybody that joining Ruto is a disaster, is an abomination. It cannot work.
Siaya Governor James Orengo has termed the move as disastrous, saying it is akin to supporting the atrocities committed by the government to the people.
We cannot kill our people. And the time when we are mourning them, we are looking for officers. That cannot happen. We must first deal with injustice before we can deal with the questions that arise out of that injustice.
Orengo's statement comes as some of the ODM leaders support the call for dialogue by the head of state, calling on their leader to engage in the dialogue. Orengo, however, says the government has failed in its mandate and that the call for Ruto to go home should be intensified.
When we say Ruto must go with all his people. The entire government must go. Nobody is going to remain there.
Youth from Ukambani region now say the move by Odinga is a betrayal to the cause of the Azimio coalition.
We want to tell Raila that we have noted that you are in bed with our oppressors, our enemies of progress, but you have been doing your peaceful meetings and rallies in Ukambani and disrupted. Don't mistake our humbleness and our peaceful for cowardice.
The political temperatures in the country continue to rise as leaders differ on the way forward so as not to betray the cause. The call for reforms are taking center stage with the future of the proposed dialogue hanging by a thread. Brian Amuai, K24, Nairobi.
President William Ruto's announcement of the first 11 nominees to his new cabinet continues to elicit mixed reaction. And as Ian Keitani reports, the inclusion of some members of the previous cabinet has pleased some people and annoyed so many others.
The decision by President William Ruto to nominate 11 cabinet secretaries has been met with jubilation and melancholia in equal measure across various parts of the country. Civil societies led by Transparency International, Kenya Human Rights Commission, TISA, among others, have strongly opposed the nomination of 6 cabinet secretaries who served in the previous cabinet, citing their questionable integrity as stipulated in Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution as the basis for their rejection.
The president nominated 11 candidates to serve in Kenya. 6 of the 11 nominees served in the previous cabinet. That was dissolved by the president primarily because of their failure to enhance efficiency, effectiveness, transparency and accountability in public service delivery. This was an admission by the president that his government had failed. Therefore, the reappointment of the 6 nominees is unconstitutional insofar as they do not meet the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya.
In Kandara, Murang'a County, residents took to the streets to celebrate the nomination of Alice Wahome as the CS for lands.
It's a big honor, it's a big responsibility, and I appreciate and confirm and commit my personal commitment.
Wahome could not hide her joy, expressing gratitude to the head of state while calling on Kenyans to maintain peace as nobody would want to see the country thrown into anarchy.
Kenyan people must agree to allow processes to be taken forward from where we are, using our constitution and using the sovereignty of the people, but remembering that sovereignty must be exercised within a constitutional order and within the rule of law.
Elsewhere in Isiolo County, residents led by Olondonyiro Ward MCA David Lamantile lauded the president's decision to nominate Professor Kithure Kindiki, citing the commendable work the CS had done in tackling banditry during his short stint as interior CS.
Hata kama kidogo kulikuwa na marekebisho pengine ulifanya katika baraza lako la mawaziri, umefanya mzuri sana kurudisha Kindiki ndiye aweze kuendeleza ile kazi alikuwa naye ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba Kenya iko na amani. Na pia katika Lower Mount Kenya tunajua kwamba waziri Kindiki ameweza kuunganisha watu. Ameweza kuunganisha watu wote ambao wanaishi katika area hii bila kubagua mtu yote katika minajili ya ukabila.
Amekuwa ni mtu ambaye anakuja kwa ground. Yeye sio mtu akukaa kwa ofisi, anatembea na kujua shida ya wananchi. Kama Isiolo amekuja, Isiolo I think amekuja mara mingi sana. Amekuja karibu zaidi ya mara 10 kutembelea kujua hali ya Isiolo. Na ameengage sana viongozi na ameengage mpaka raia na kusikiza na kujua shida ni nini. Sisi tunampongeza Kindiki kwa sababu hiyo nafasi amerudi. Tunajua ameperform kwa mambo ya security sana.
The feeling was however different in Elgeyo Marakwet County, with locals expressing their dissatisfaction following the decision by President William Ruto not to reinstate Kipchumba Murkomen back to the transport docket. The locals called on the president to consider their former senator in the remaining slots, taking into consideration his track record.
President, please consider Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen. We know that he has done a lot. Sisi kama wakazi wa Elgeyo Marakwet tulikuwa tunatarajia mabarabara ambayo alikuwa ameanzisha, lakini kwa sasa tungependa umrudishe ile kazi ambayo ilikuwa imepangika ifanyike.
With eyes now set on Parliament for the vetting process, Manyata MP Gitonga Mukunji has noted that the vetting process must be done rigorously to ensure that the nominees are suitable, insisting that the nominee for Agriculture, Dr. Andrew Karanja, must prioritize payment to K24 farmers if he will be approved by the House.
Tukirudi bunge, tunarudi kumfanya vetting. Mtu yoyote ambaye wananchi hawaoni yako sawa, mimi nitafanya public participation. Ndio nikienda bunge nijue na represent idea na ile maneno ambayo wananchi wameniambia, ili niweze kuwa sawa katika representation yangu. Ule waziri mpya amepewa maneno ya agriculture, ajue watu wetu hawajapata pesa ya kahawa almost close to 1 year, aweze kuwashughulikia hiyo maneno na tuweze kukua sawa.
Ian Kitani, K24 TV.
Well, on that note, we take our very first break here on Evening Edition. More stories to come, including Mombasa leaders say on the cabinet nominees. Stay put.
Cheza kama wewe na Cheza Sita. Ushinde